We are a week out from Max Holloway and Dustin Poirier, the trilogy. Dustin's retirement fight, although we've been saying that for his last 2 or 3 fights. But I'm going to give my breakdown and prediction for every single fight on this card. And I've got a really good feeling about this card. There's something about this card. There's something about these fights. I just have a good feeling about it when it comes to predictions. I think I'm going to do very well. Now, of course, you can come back to this when the card is all said and done, and we'll see how I do, but I'm thinking a masterclass. I'm thinking I'm getting at least 10 of these right, so I'm excited for it. And although this is not a stacked card, there are some fun fights. There are some good fights, all right, and I think that I may have been a little bit too harsh on this one because the prelims are pretty solid. I have to say, I've seen pay-per-views that are stacked that actually don't have prelims that are this good, But before we get into this, guys, I just wanted to say that if you've been struggling to get in better shape and you've just lost all hope and you're about to give up, have no fear. The Real Food Cookbook and the Ultimate Lifting Program or the Novice Lifting Programs are here. Listen, guys, I've made 2 lifting programs, one for beginners, one for people that know what they're doing in the gym, but maybe they've hit a plateau and they want to break through the plateau. And I've also made a cookbook to make some of the best comfort foods from around the world with whole and unprocessed foods. Makes it a lot easier to stick to a diet so you can actually eat tasty foods and look forward to your meals. But again, they're healthy, so you don't have to worry about there being a bunch of processed bullshit in your food. You don't have to order out. You can always just cook in, okay? And of course, the Ultimate Lifting Program, it's to help you break through a plateau. The Novice Lifting Program, for those of you that are brand new to the gym. If you're interested in any of these programs, you want to get in shape, you want to bulk, whatever, you want to get lean and mean, check them out. The links are in the description. Make sure to use code MMA for 30% off. Let's get into this card, starting with Carli, Judice, and Nicolle, Caliari. I broke this down on the boxing channel. I usually end up breaking the first fight of every single card down on the boxing channel. It's not always just the WMMA ones, but I broke this one down in depth. Those of you that are following the boxing channel will have already seen it. And I talked about Nicolle Caliari's inside leg kick versus Carli Judice's. I always do a this weapon versus a this weapon. Carli Judice, what she's really good at is that head kick. She's coming off of a head kick KO. And I'm going to pick Carli Judice because of it. I think that Nicolle Caliari's inside leg kick is very good. But I ultimately think the head kick is a little bit more deadly. I'm going to go with Carli Judice. Okay? I think she's going to get this one done. Normally I pick on the record, but I'm going to pick on the one woman has actually got a nasty KO. And if you look at her record, she actually has a lot of finishes on her record. So I think that's also very important for WMMA. She's going to have a height advantage. She's going to have a significant reach advantage. And I just think that unless Nicolle Caliari is the next Jessica Andrade, and I don't think she is, I think Carli Judice is just going to piece her up at range. Showing head kick KO potential in general, plus a reach and height advantage is big in WMMA. So I'm going to pick her to win this. As we get on to Brunno Ferreira, I'm just going to stack up on another win here. I'm going to go with Brunno Ferreira. I'm just stacking up on another dub. I know I'm going to get this one right. Jackson McKee, he is making his UFC debut. He's filling in for another fighter. I forget the guy's name, but this was supposed to be Brunno Ferreira versus someone that was already, experienced in the UFC, someone that was good. I forget who the guy is, but I'm going with Brunno Ferreira. He's just got a wealth of experience. He's tough. He's got finishing ability. He's got a good submission game. He's got just about everything that you'd need to have for me to not even need to know much about someone when they're making their debut. It's just that I can't pick them against someone like Brunno Ferreira. He's too experienced. He's proven too much in the UFC. Dangerous, tough, powerful, fast, well-rounded enough. I'm going with Brunno Ferreira to win this by a KO. I'm also assuming that Jackson McVey, unless he was about to make his debut or something a couple weeks from now, I'm guessing he's taking this on short notice. Well, he is taking this on short notice. I mean, I'm guessing he hasn't had a full camp. But either way, that gives me more reason to pick Brunno Ferreira. Let's get on to the next one. Ryan Spann versus Lukasz Brzeski. Lukasz Brzeski, the guy to beat Valter Walker, but I'm not picking him in this fight. I think that this is a huge step down in competition for Ryan Spann. And even though Valter Walker lost against Lukasz Brzeski, that was his first ever UFC fight. He's clearly improved since then. And I also think that he was probably just not in good condition going into that fight, because he basically just lost and got outstruck. Took Lukasz Brzeski down a couple times, wasn't able to do anything with it, but looked super slow, not dynamic, gassed out after a minute. There was something up with him that night, and I don't think that is indication that Lukasz Brzeski is just that good. Now, I did pick Lukasz Brzeski. It was a very crafty pick of mine, but the reason why I'm picking Ryan Spann, who just lost his heavyweight debut, and that is a really bad look. Normally, I'm going to pick the light heavyweights to win in their debuts. I'm picking Ryan Spann nonetheless because he still had a lot of moments against Waldo Cortez Acosta, and Waldo Cortez Acosta has an underrated chin. He took some big bombs from Ryan Spann, and not only does he have an underrated chin, and was I surprised to see him take some big bombs that I don't know if Lukasz Brzeski is going to take, but also Waldo Cortez Acosta is just way better than Lukasz Brzeski. I mean, we have to say that at this point. He just beat Curtis Blades. Sorry, guys. I'm actually mixing Rizvan Kuniev with Waldo Cortez Acosta because they're basically the same exact person. They fight exactly the same. Waldo Cortez Acosta just got a win over Ryan Spann and Sergey Spivak. They may not be the best fighters in the world, but they're obviously better than Lukasz Brzeski. And Ryan Spann had a nice scrap with Waldo Cortez Acosta. Waldo won, but Spann is at least good enough to draw him into a competitive scrap. Whereas I don't think Lukasz Brzeski would even come close to being competitive with Waldo Cortez Acosta. And ultimately, Spann is going to be faster. He's going to hit harder. Lukasz Brzeski doesn't have any power in his hands. He's been KO'd before. He just sort of blubs around the octagon, to be honest. So I'm going to go with Ryan Spann. I just don't think this is a dangerous matchup. I'll pick against Spann in dangerous matchups. Even Waldo's Cortez Acosta wasn't really a dangerous matchup, but at least you could say Waldo has speed. He has got footwork, good output. You can't say any of that against Lukasz Brzeski or about Lukasz Brzeski. I'm sorry. So I'm going with Spann by KO. Jimmy Crute versus Marcin Prachnio. I am picking Jimmy Crute. And it's kind of crazy because if you look at Jimmy Crute's last 4 fights, he's not won a single fight. He's got 2 draws and 2 L's. All right. He had a draw against Rodolfo Bellato. He's got a draw against Alonzo Menafield. He took a loss to Alonzo Menafield, and he lost one of these other fights as well. He's fighting better fighters than Marcin Prachnio. Like, I think that Rodolfo Bellato is a better fighter than Marcin Prachnio. Marcin Prachnio his best wins are over guys like William Knight. You know, he's the guy that dances on the outside, kicks on the outside. He just got beat by Modestas Bukauskas. I think Jimmy Crute losing to Menafield, drawing with Menafield, drawing with Bellato, I think that he's making it really competitive. He's almost able to win these fights. I don't know if Marcin Prachnio is able to win those fights. So I'm going to go with Jimmy Crute. I just think he's a step better. He's also 29. Prachnio's 36. He's going to have a youth advantage. Prachnio is a longer reach, but I mean, not really. Actually, it's the same reach. 1-inch height advantage. We're talking a kicker versus a guy that has shown improved boxing that we know is good on the ground. I think that Jimmy Crute might even be able to get a submission here. On the feet, I think Crute's a little scrappier. I think he's a little bit of a better boxer. Marcin Prachnio is really just a kicker. And I also just see his ability to get the takedown. Younger, gave better levels of competition, tougher fights. I'm going with Crute for that reason. Adam Fugitt versus Islam Dulatov, the mogger himself. I think Islam Dulatov is going to mog Adam Fugitt. Okay, now Adam Fugitt's actually not that bad. He's got a funny name, but his only losses in the UFC are to Mike Malott, who's a good fighter. He got finished by him, and also to Michael Morales. But every other fighter he's been able to beat. He just got a win over Josh Quinlan, who's pretty scrappy. The problem is, he's a decision guy. He's not TKOing anyone. He's not dangerous, Adam Fugitt. He's a pepper at range kind of guy, last you till decision kind of guy. Whereas Islam Dulatov goes out there and finishes people in the first round. I think this guy's got like 10 first-round finishes. I think his record is like 11-1. I don't think he's undefeated. I think he may have lost one fight in his entire career, but he's like 11-1, 10 first-round finishes. nasty elbows, good clinch work, very powerful, imposes his will to the max. I think I don't know how tall he is. I think Adam Fugitt 6'1". I think Islam Dulatov's like 6'1", 6'2". And then the reach, I'm guessing, is going to be pretty similar. But I'm just going with Islam Dulatov. He is a imposer of the will with power, first-round finishability. He's not going to have any disadvantages when it comes to height and reach. He's fast. And I just can't pick a decision merchant against him right now. So I'm going to go with Islam Dulatov. I think he's going to get this one done. So let's get on to the next one. Ateba Gautier versus Robert Valentin. I'm just going to go with Robert Valentin. I just think Valentin's going to get him. I just think he's going to do a roly-poly on the ground and lock up an ankle lock. No, I'm just kidding. I'm going to go with Ateba Gautier by brutal first-round KO. Listen, Robert Valentin, say what you want. His last fight, it wasn't all his fault just because it was one of the most boring fights we've ever seen. He was kind of just smudged up against the fence. I just don't think he's that dangerous on the feet. And Ateba Gautier has shown massive improvements from one fight to the next. Like, he's not the same guy that made his UFC debut, Ateba Gautier. He's not the same guy that was on the Contender Series. I'm sorry. I think his debut was the one where he just murked that guy on the Mexico card. I forget where he's from, Bolivia or something. Ateba Gautier had a sick combination, rocked this guy with a really nasty right hand, and then had a step-in knee to the face. Very slick, nasty combo, athletic, good technique, hits like a truck. And he's like 24 or something like that. He's super young as well. He's going to rapidly improve. Robert Valentin, he's got some ability to do okay at range, but he's not that dangerous. He's not cracking you, knocking you out. And he's just getting manhandled in his last fight, even though the other guy was just holding him up against the fence. It's like, I just don't see Robert Valentin being able to get Ateba Gautier to the ground easily. Even though he's been taken down back in the day, this guy's rapidly improving. I'm guessing his takedown defenses too. He's very patient. On the Contender Series, he's a little wild, but now he's picking his shots, and it just makes him much more lethal. And I just don't think Robert Valentin's going to squiggly him to the ground, okay? Robert Valentin, he's the kind, first off, he was beaten on tough. Or did he get a win on the Dana White Contender Series? Like, he's just not a blast double leg guy. He's not going to go in there and shoot a blast double leg down the pipe. Right? Run Ateba Gautier down the gauntlet with a double leg. He's going to go in there. He's going to try to fucking grab a single leg, man. He's going to try to squiggly him down to the fucking ground. Like Paul Craig. I just think he's going to get fucking knocked out. I'm sorry, man. Ateba Gautier, maybe he gasses out. Maybe he doesn't have the best gas tank. We'll see. But I just think he's going to clip Robert Valentin with something early, and he's going to knock him out, okay? So, yeah, Ateba gets this one done by KO. Francisco Prado versus Nikolay Veretennikov. Francisco Prado, small man at welterweight, didn't do so well in his last welterweight fight, lost his welterweight fight to Jake Matthews. But you know what? That loss in hindsight's not looking so bad. Jake Matthews is actually looking pretty good. He just got a submission in his last fight. And Jake Matthews is just one of those guys where he doesn't look good in his fights when he's striking, but I guess he is just kind of good, right? And it's hard to really put your finger on why he's good, but he is just kind of good. Doesn't make a lot of mistakes. Whereas Nikolay Veretennikov has just lost every single fight in his UFC career. He's 0-3, lost to Austin Vanderfeld on like short notice. Vanderford, Paige Van Zandt's boyfriend, Bellator guy. He got destroyed by the Bellator guy in his UFC debut. I'm going to go with Francisco Prado. Now, I am worried because Francisco Prado is one of these stubborn tree stump kind of fighters where he just sort of goes forward and uses the blockhead Vettori style to his advantage. But he's aggressive, but he's not a complete marauder. He's not just going to go for broke and just try to blitzkrieg you, right? He's one of these like fire hydrant head guys that goes forward and gets in your face, but not 100% all out. Like, he's going to take damage. He's not, you look at his style, this guy's going to war every time. He kind of is, but kind of not. I just think that I'm going to give him a chance. I think he's the younger guy. Nicolle is 35. Francisco is like 28. He's going to have a little bit of that speed advantage from having fought at lightweight. And, I've seen some of those fights with Zellhuber that he had that was pretty close. And I think that if you're having a close fight with Zellhuber, you're losing to Jake Matthews, but it was relatively competitive. I think you're probably going to beat Nikolay, Veretennikov. And don't let the OV fool you. He's not very good. So let's get on to Marvin Vettori versus Brendan Allen. I think this is one of the easiest fights to pick on the entire card. I'm going to go with Brendan Allen. This is a no-brainer. And it ultimately comes down to this. Brendan Allen is having really close fights with the elite fighters in his division. He's having close fights with Anthony Hernandez where it's super competitive. He is arguably winning a whole round off of him. And it's a 2-1 fight. 2 rounds to 1. He's having a close competitive fight with Nassourdine Imavov where you could honestly say, man, if Brendan Allen just made that one adjustment, maybe he could have won, right? He's having a really good fight with a more in his prime version of Chris Curtis where he wins. It's a competitive fight. He didn't dominate, but he wins. I just don't think I could ever see Marvin Vettori making it as competitive with the level of fighters that Brendan Allen is making it competitive with. Also, Brendan Allen is good in certain places. He's a great grappler. He's got good jiu-jitsu. Okay, he's got decent stand-up. He's hittable, but he's actually got decent hands. He's got okay boxing. Not even okay, like slightly better than okay. He hits kind of hard. Whereas Marvin Vettori does nothing great, and he's losing a striking battle to Roman Dolidze. I don't think Brendan Allen is losing a striking battle to Roman Dolidze. I don't think we're saying if Marvin just made that adjustment against Nassourdine Imavov, he would be able to win. Like maybe if we're talking full barge mode, which is not a minor adjustment, that's a big adjustment. But, Marvin Vettori can't make a little adjustment and beat Nassourdine Imavov. So the levels are just different. Allen is better everywhere. He's a better grappler. He's a more dangerous fighter everywhere. He's more dangerous with his hands. And Vettori's tough. I don't see Vettori getting knocked out. I don't see Brendan Allen subbing him or finishing him, but I just think Allen's going to be a step ahead everywhere. I think it's going to be a striking battle for the most part. I just think Allen's the better boxer, and I think he's the faster fighter. I like Marvin Vettori. I always root for Marvin Vettori, but he's just mediocre. I'm sorry. Like, it's that simple. He does nothing great. His boxing's not great. His kicking is not great. His ability to make adjustments, they're not there. I'm going to go with Brendan Allen, and I'm going to pick him by a 30-27 decision. Maybe Vettori does well early on. He can give people issues early on because of that southpaw stance. But listen, he's not going to adjust. He's going to drop the second and drop the third. I don't think Vettori is good enough to be in the top 15 anymore. Okay? I think he's ranked number 10, but I don't think he's good enough to be fighting these guys. I'm sorry. Let's get on to the next one. Kyler Phillips versus Vinicius Oliveira. I'm going to go with Vinicius Oliveira. Listen, Kyler Phillips is just so hit or miss. Sometimes he has performances where he's literally looking like he's in the Matrix. I know that's his nickname, but look at that fight that he had with Song Yadong. Now, granted, he did pop for some sort of performance-enhancing drug after that, and that was right after the Song Yadong fight where he looked wickedly fast and he held up for 3 rounds. But since then, he's not been able to have a performance like that, but every now and then he's impressive. But we're talking impressive against who? Pedro Munoz? But then he goes out there and he gasses out after 1 round against Rob Font. His gas tank's always been an issue. I mean, this guy lost. He lost to Raulian Paiva. It was a close fight, controversial a little bit. I just don't think Vinicius Oliveira is ever losing to Raulian Paiva. And this is the thing. He's just more consistent. He's more consistently good. He doesn't fall off of a cliff in his fights. He has shown issues with his gas tank before, but not as much as Kyler Phillips. He doesn't drop off as much when it comes to his cardio in the middle of a fight. And even though he looked tired in his last one, it was a heavy pace that he was having with Said Nurmagomedov, who I picked to beat him. Said Nurmagomedov is very high level. He's got a good submission game, great kicking game. And Vinicius Oliveira outdogged him. Outstruck him in moments, outdogged him. We know he has good takedown defense. He showed that against Said. He also showed that against Ricky Simone. And in the Ricky Simón fight, I mean, this is why I'm ultimately picking him based on the cardio alone. He held up for 3 rounds, looked great, right? I mean, the only time he was losing a round because he was tired was in his debut. And that's aged well. The guy that he knocked out in his UFC debut with that flying knee, the Albanian, I forget his name, Sopaj, he's been doing really well. He's done nothing but win since then. So I'm going to go with Vinicius Oliveira. I think Kyler Phillips is going to make it real competitive early, but I don't see him finishing Vinicius Oliveira. I don't think he's got that kind of power. I think Vinicius Oliveira is also going to be tough to deal with early. They're both very unorthodox, but they're both fast. Vinicius Oliveira is also going to have a height advantage, which is going to be good for him. Kyler Phillips will have a 1.5-inch reach advantage, but ultimately, I think that Vinicius will hold up better as the fight goes on. His output will remain, whereas Kyler Phillips, his output will fall off. He will get tired. And I just think Vinicius is going to snag the second and the third round. So let's get on to the next one. Daniel Zellhuber versus Michael Johnson. This is easy. I'm going with Zellhuber. Listen, Johnson, I know it seems like he's had a bit of a resurgence, but against who? Fowler and a Zaitar? Like, both of those guys are just not very good. Zaitar had been out of the cage for a while, and Michael Johnson had his big KO that he gets every once in a while, but I don't think Daniel Zellhuber's getting KO'd. He's super tough. He just had a war with Ribovic, and he's young. He's going to be able to recover just fine from a war like that. And Ribovic is very good. Ribovic is solid. And Zellhuber, before that fight, was on a good win streak, like a 3 or 4 fight win streak. He's going to have a height advantage. He's going to have a 3-inch height advantage, a 4-inch reach advantage, basically. And I just think Zellhuber's a little bit too in his prime. Johnson's too reliant on a KO. Now, Johnson's still fast. Maybe he's going to make something crafty happen in the second and third. Maybe he'll start finding his jab and he'll land a big KO. But I just think Daniel Zellhuber, he's tough, he's gritty, and he's more in his prime. Listen, if Michael Johnson's going to a close decision with Fowler, I think Zellhuber's going to get this one done pretty easily. I think he's going to outstrike him fairly easily. And he's improving rapidly. Johnson, he can't be improving at this point. So I'm going with Zellhuber by decision. Let's get on to Dan Ige versus Patricio Pitbull. Now, this is actually a pretty difficult fight to pick. I have to say this is one of the hardest fights to pick, if not the toughest fight to pick on the entire card. And that's because they have the same build. Right off the bat, these guys are literally like doppelgangers. Dan Ige, Patricio Pitbull, same build, same kind of strengths, like, you know, close range, boxing, big bombs. I'd say that Ige is definitely the higher output guy, though. Ige is about 4 years younger. I think Patricio Pitbull's 37 or 38. Ige's 33. But both guys around that 5'6", 5'7" range. It looks like Ige is actually going to have a pretty good reach advantage. I'm going to go with Ige, though. I am going to pick Ige. Now, I think prime Patricio Pitbull would obviously be a tougher fight and could probably pull it off. But the reason I go with Ige is because, number one, the Ole Ole. I rewatched Pitbull's fight with one of his recent opponents, Kennedy, in Bellator, and he's getting picked apart a little bit at range, and it wasn't until the end of the second round where he gets the KO, but it's like the KO itself just not that impressive. It was just a standard right hand, but nothing super fast, not a fancy setup, nothing that I think he's going to get Dan Ige with. And he sort of rocks his opponent, and then his opponent, Kennedy, in Bellator, just as, you know, he jumps on him after that, tees off on him. But I just don't see that happening to Ige, man. I think Ige's much more defensively responsible than this Kennedy guy. And he's just been in the cage with much better levels of competition recently. I would even argue that Dan Ige has fought better levels of competition than Patricio Pitbull in his entire fucking career. Listen, Patricio Pitbull, the best fighters he's ever fought were like Chandler and Yair in his debut in the UFC. McKee is not that great. I'm sorry. Ige may have fought better levels. Ige's been in there with TKZ. Ige's been in there with the who's who of the featherweight division that's not like, he's not been in there with Holloway, Volk, but he's been in the cage with most people outside of that top three. He's been in there with Murphy, Lerone Murphy. Close fight with Lerone Murphy. Very close fight. Super close fight with Diego Lopez. Short notice, right? Arguably won that third round, or definitely won that third round. that's a guy that hits hard as well. I mean, he's been in the cage with people that hit hard. He's not been KO'd before. He's not been finished by Emmett. He's not been finished by Lopez. He just got a KO against a guy that's really difficult to pin down in Sean Woodson, the Martian. So he's got the youth advantage. He's got, in my opinion, the experience advantage. I mean, listen, maybe not experience advantage, but I should say the experience in the UFC just fighting nothing but top 10, top 15 guys, whereas Patricio Pitbull, every few years he fights someone that's at that top 15 UFC level for a title fight. But then he's in there with Kennedy, who's like, Kennedy wouldn't even be a fucking ranked fighter in the UFC. Wouldn't even be, he might get cut, honestly. And he's having moments and he's doing pretty well. And I will say that Pitbull had moments in the Yair fight where he kind of surprised me, where he was able to hit Yair with some big shots, but I think he's overly reliant on a KO. Whereas Ige, I think that he does get a lot of KOs, and sometimes he needs one against the who's who. But the thing that makes me more comfortable with picking him is because when he's fighting people like Diego Lopez or Lerone Murphy, he's still able to have good output. He throws a lot of strikes, a lot more than Patricio Pitbull, and still makes it very, very close. And I just think he's going to throw 5 strikes for every 1 strike Patricio Pitbull throws. I think he's going to throw a lot of kicks. I think we might even see some takedown shot, even though Patricio Pitbull, I know he can grapple. I just think he's going to be more active in this fight. And I think Patricio Pitbull, we're just not seeing the prime version of this guy. We're seeing a different fighter than the one who was the guy that people ranted and raved about when he was champion like 5-6 years ago in Bellator. So it's going to be close just based on the fact that there are similar statures, and Patricio Pitbull is around the Ige level 100%. But he's declined, low output, ole guy. You watch that fight with Kennedy, and it's like this guy's throwing 1 strike every 2.5 minutes. That's what I'm talking about. I just can't pick this guy to beat Ige, who's not even Mr. High Output himself, but against people that are around his stature, he will throw good output, you know? And he does have good cardio. He's got a great team around him. Eric Nixick. I was talking to Eric Nixick the other day, and he told me that Ige's prepared. He's ready to go. He's going to have that Nixick style of press him up against the fence, put it on him, make him work, make him backpedal, make him run. I'm going with Ige. He's getting this one done by decision, okay? Let's get on to the next one. Also, as I said, Ige's hardly ever been put away. Who is knocking this guy out? So, yeah. Let's get on to Kevin Holland versus Daniel Rodriguez. I'm going with Kevin Holland, and you know what? I've picked against Kevin Holland a lot. I actually picked Luque to win in his last fight, but I just looked at Kevin Holland's record, and something occurred to me. Those losses that he's taken a lot of losses, but they're not that bad, right? We're talking losses to Reynor de Ritter. We're talking losses to Jack Della Maddalena. We're talking losses to Wonderboy Thompson like 3 years ago when Wonderboy was still really, really good. That's when Wonderboy was like, I wouldn't say Wonderboy was in his prime at his peak, but he was only slightly declined. And it's not surprising that an only slightly declined Wonderboy was able to school Kevin Holland. But against this level of competition, Kevin Holland is just not losing, especially when they're strikers. Yeah, he lost to Vettori back in the day, but like, you know, Holland at middleweight, he's like the one guy where lighter man skill just doesn't apply. You know that about Holland, by the way. But against this level, against the Ponzinibbio's, and I know Rodriguez is coming off of a KO against Ponzinibbio, but against this level, Holland just wins. And he's been on a roll. He's been on a good streak right now. He's got 2 in a row. I think he's got a lot of confidence now. I would even consider picking Holland to beat Colby Covington, even though Colby could definitely take him down. I think Colby's just totally washed at this point. But I'm going to go with Kevin Holland, and I think he's going to win this by a decision or a TKO. He's looking fast. He's going to have a speed advantage. Again, the guys that are beating him are just at that next level. Khamzat Chimaev, JDM, Reynor de Ritter. And I know Reynor de Ritter hasn't necessarily proven that he's that elite yet, but I mean, he's just a much bigger guy, a super high-level grappler. It's just a bad matchup for Holland, but when Holland's fighting the Mikhail Zaitchuks, when he's fighting the Ponzinibios, when he's fighting the Gunnar Nelsons, he's usually winning, and he just beat Vicente Luque. Now, D-Rod's a lot faster than Vicente Luque. He's got better boxing, But I don't know if I would even say he's much tougher than Vicente Luque. I mean, I've seen D-Rod get finished. I've seen him get put away. And I've seen him lose close battles to guys like, well, did he beat Kelvin Gastelum? No, Kelvin Gastelum actually beat him. I just can't pick you against a longer, rangier, also high output Kevin Holland if you're losing to Kelvin Gastelum. So ultimately, Kevin Holland should get this one done. Speed advantage, range advantage. If Jack Della Maddalena is having an issue finding you on the feet, even though he was able to win and he landed the better shots, it's hard to track down Kevin Holland on the feet. He's a little bit difficult to pin down unless you are that next level like JDM, Wonderboy. And D-Rod's pretty good with his boxing, but I also don't see him getting a finish. I could see Holland getting the finish, getting a decision. D-Rod needs a decision because he's not knocking out Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland's too tough. Another guy that beat Kevin Holland, by the way, MVP. You see what I'm saying? The people that are beating him these days are excellent fighters. So, yeah. On to the next one, Roman Kopylov versus Paulo Costa. I think Roman Kopylov is going to put a vicious beating on Paulo Costa. I think he's probably going to finish Paulo Costa. I'm going to go with Roman Kopylov by a second round TKO. I think this is going to be entertaining because I think Costa's super tough. And even though I'm picking Kopylov by a TKO, I don't think he's got one-hitter-quitter power. It's going to be like a cumulative damage kind of TKO where he's going to rock him with a head kick, follow him to the fence, and the ref is going to step in. Costa's going to be in a situation where there's a bunch of unanswered shots, but he's kind of starting to crumble up against the fence. I don't see Costa going down flatlined, but I see him getting put away up against the fence to a barrage of strikes. Kopylov has the advantage everywhere. I mean, I've said it. Listen, he had that one fight against Cesar Almeida where he needed to wrestle because he got tired. And then the other loss, although he beat Almeida, it wasn't a loss. But the loss he has in the UFC is to Anthony Hernandez. Anthony Hernandez is a totally different fighter than Paulo Costa. He's a wrestler who has the best gas tank in this division, arguably. Kopylov beat his ass in the first round, got submitted. But what, is Costa going to ragdoll him and submit him? I remember there was a time where people were talking about Costa's grappling is actually super underrated because he used to be a grappler on Tough, fighting bums back in the day. If you're not finishing Luke Rockhold, and it's competitive, he honestly, I got to say this, he did okay against Strickland. He was landing some good body shots, but Kopylov is just more lethal. The speed, man. Strickland's just got an ability to allow people into a fight a little bit, even though he's going to always be clearly ahead. Because Strickland is not threatening you with anything dangerous, it allows a guy like Paulo Costa with a good chin to get in there and land a couple of body shots every now and then. The consequences are just so much graver with Kopylov. As I said, he's not a one-hitter-quitter kind of guy, but he does have thud on his punches. He does have the ability to do high output. And I don't think we're getting the Costa that fought Yoel Romero. It's going to push the pace no matter what. If this is right after the Yoel fight, I'm considering Paulo Costa to weather an early storm and win in the later rounds by a TKO. I still think that version of Costa is getting beat up in the first. Kopylov destroyed Chris Curtis in the first, TKO'd him in the third. We know how fast he's just going to destroy Paulo Costa. I'm sorry. Costa's just mid, dude. He's just mid. He's got a simpleton's body kick. He's got a couple of big punches to the body every now and then, which could be effective against Costa. Cesar Almeida was able to land some good body shots on him, but I just don't think he's got the footwork. I don't think he's hungry enough. I mean, this is another thing about Costa. He's always got one foot in and one foot out. He's pulling out of every single fight. Sometimes he's not giving his best effort. Sometimes it looks like he doesn't care. Kopylov is on a roll. And he's also not a spring chicken. Kopylov is like 32 years old, 32 or 33. His back is against the wall in every fight. He needs this win. If he loses this, it's 2 steps back. That title is just really difficult to get. If he wins this, he's arguably 2 away. A big name in Paulo Costa, where he's got probably the biggest name next to Marvin Vettori for someone that's not actually that good in the middleweight division. Like, he's got a bigger name than some guys that are better than him. It's a big name. If you beat him, people are going to take notice, and they're going to give you another big fight. They're going to give you a main event, or they're going to give you another chance on a main card against someone close to the top 5. Like the winner of Allen versus Vettori is probably the kind of fighter that Kopylov would fight next. You beat that guy, you might be 1 away. Either way, you're no further than 3 away. Now, you could say the same thing for Paulo Costa, but I just don't believe Costa truly thinks he's going to be a champion. I think Roman Kopylov, he's had enough hardships, he's had enough tough moments to keep him honest, where, okay, like I can't drink my Kool-Aid. I got to really still push to get better. But he's had a good amount of momentum, good ratio of wins to losses so that his ego can still be there and he can still think of himself as maybe one of the best middleweights on the planet because he is continuing to win. This is easy. Kopylov is going to go out there. He's going to start landing the jab. He's going to bloody up the nose of Paulo Costa. He's going to start landing vicious body kicks to the ribs, vicious head kicks upstairs. And I think it's just going to start to get to Costa. It sort of reminds me of the Adesanya fight where it wasn't necessarily that Costa was just getting hit with a Max Holloway barrage early on. It's just that Adesanya was able to land so clean, so hard on him early. He was getting pieced up. He was getting damaged, and he didn't like it. He kind of folded, and he kind of broke a little bit. And I think the same thing is going to happen here. I think he's going to kind of break a little bit mentally when he's facing the speed. I think some guys, it wakes them up and it gets them into the fight. Like with the Chris Curtis, it pisses them off, it gets them into it. Some guys, they get discouraged, and I think Costa's going to get a little bit discouraged. I think Kopylov's going to go in there, bust his nose up. He's going to land the jab. He's going to land the head kick upstairs, and he's going to TKO him in the second round. So Roman Kopylov's getting this one done. This is his big breakout moment, and I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be fun, though, because Costa's going to be in there. Costa's going to be standing tough, but there's going to be some coping. Just like with Adesanya, he was standing there tough, but eventually he stopped throwing strikes and just started emoting, right? So I think what we're going to see is we're going to see Costa's output drop off because he's going to get discouraged, and yeah. Whereas if this was the Costa that fought Yoel, that output's only going to maintain or go up. It's not the same guy. He's getting finished. Second round. Kopylov gets it done. He's going to have every advantage in the book you could possibly think of. And his takedown defense has improved too. If Costa wants to go out there and try to prove his fanboys right with his fucking tough takedowns, The Ultimate Fighter 2015 takedowns, then I think that Kopylov's going to be ready for it if he was able to stuff some of Hernandez's. Let's get on to the next one. Max Holloway versus Dustin Poirier. Holloway is going to beat Dustin Poirier by a decision. That is my pick. I've thought about a finish. I'm a little bit worried for Max, given that he just got KO'd, and this is a weird spot for him. He's never been knocked out. He probably went into every single fight that he's ever gone into thinking that he won't get knocked out, that he can't get knocked out because of how many bombs he's been able to eat. How is that going to affect his mentality going up a weight class against a heavy hitter where he's already felt the power of Dustin Poirier? Now, obviously, his chin is going to get better at lightweight since he's not cutting as much weight and he's going to be more hydrated, 100%. He's going to be able to take a better punch. But again, after that KO, you may start to doubt a little bit. You may get a little bit timid. We don't know how that's going to affect Max. I don't think it's going to affect him much, though, because it is Max Holloway. And I think that he's cool, calm, and collected. He's got ice in his veins. I think he's the kind of fighter that'll be able to be just fine with it. But ultimately, I'm picking Max because I think he has improved a lot throughout the past 4 or 5 years, 5-6 years, since that second fight with Dustin Poirier, which was actually pretty competitive. Holloway arguably won 2 rounds. If you look at that fight, if you go to the YouTube comments, every time the UFC posts that legendary rematch that they had in 2019, the top comments are all saying this was a lot more competitive than I remembered because Dustin Poirier beat him up real bad in the first round, but third, fourth round, Holloway won. Looked like he was changing the tide. Poirier had to grit down and win that fifth. But this time, Holloway's improved. He's had 2 evolutions, whereas Dustin Poirier, maybe he's had 1, but he's slower. Whereas Holloway is just as fast, if not faster, and a lot better. Like Poirier may have gotten better a little skill-wise, but his body has deteriorated, and Holloway has gotten a lot better skill-wise, whereas his body is going to be better stronger, faster, because again, he was fat. He didn't take that camp when it came to bulking up serious. He just sort of didn't cut weight, and also only had 6 weeks to prepare, which is a good amount of time. People say it's short notice. I don't think it was that short notice, but clearly Holloway looked way better physically when he fought Justin Gaethje at lightweight. Like, totally different guy. Much more athletic, much stronger, bigger. Whereas against Poirier, he looked like a fat tubby, skinny fat guy. So I'm picking Max. I think Dustin Poirier, he's going to be slightly aged, slightly declined, whereas maybe this could be the beginning of the end for Holloway. This could be the start of the decline, but it could be the start of the slightly declined era of Max, where it's like the slightly declined era of Wonderboy Thompson. We still have performances where he's able to go out there and school a guy like Kevin Holland. He's still able to beat Jeff Neal. This could be slightly declined Max Holloway, whereas Dustin Poirier is going to be more than slightly declined, slower, and not as improved. Dustin, listen, when he fought Max Holloway in 2019, he was fighting a Max Holloway that didn't have anywhere near the same level of defense that he has right now. Holloway has improved his defense massively. If you look at his old fights with Dustin, if you look at his fight with Brian Ortega, which was right before Dustin, he was a lot heavier on his lead leg and sort of, he would fight downhill and sort of lean over, and his chin would be out there for you to hit, and he would kind of just try to bulldoze forward. Now, he's a lot lighter on that lead leg, more of a Muay Thai stance, much more patient, picks his shots. Output has actually declined slightly, but it's still there. It's still excellent. It's still better than all of his opponents nonetheless. And again, I haven't said it yet, but this is pretty obvious. He's going to have a speed advantage that's going to be more significant. Was the speed advantage really there the first time? Not really, but it was there. He was fast in the first fight. It's just that the power wasn't really there. But it was like a skinny fat Max, right? Whereas Poirier, he had that prime speed. Dustin Poirier was way faster back in the day. 2019, 2018, that was the fastest Dustin Poirier ever has been, okay? Whereas now, you look at the speed advantage that Holloway had against Gaethje, just clipping Gaethje with uppercuts. Gaethje didn't see him coming, right? Just being able to tag Gaethje up, land those spinning back kicks, great speed, great versatility as well. He's added more tools to his tool bag. He's added more combinations. He's learned a lot of lessons. And when I say two evolutions for Max Holloway, he got a lot better from that first Volkanovski fight to the second, he got a lot better from the first Volkanovski fight to the second Volkanovski fight, right? And then he improved even more from that second Volkanovski fight to the third Volkanovski fight. He had his best performance of his entire career against Calvin Kattar, outside of the Justin Gaethje performance, of course. But then he got schooled by Alexander Volkanovski. And again, the Max Holloway that fought Volkanovski the second time, that fought Calvin Kattar, much better than the guy that fought Dustin Poirier. After he gets schooled by Volkanovski, he came back against TKZ, and he started doing some of the things that we saw Volkanovski use on him. Some of the same combinations, some of the same tools. He brought that out in the TKZ fight. He then went out there and fought a lot more patient against Arnold Allen and was able to beat him. And then he goes out there, schools Justin Gaethje, the only fighter to ever make Gaethje look easy on the feet. Now, of course, he had a couple of hairy moments in that fight, but we're talking a couple out of a 5-rounder. Usually you fight Justin Gaethje, you've got like 10 moments where Gaethje's going to clip you big in every single fucking round. Holloway kind of shut him down and schooled him. The distance management is just so much better these days. Now, you may say, well, Lucas, Dustin Poirier's talking about going in there and making this a war. Because I've been hearing Dustin Poirier talk, and he was asked, would you rather get an early KO or have a 5-round war? He says, normally, I'd rather get an early KO, but with this one, I want a 5-round war. I want to go out on my shield. I actually don't even think, of course, Dustin wants to win, but I think a part of Dustin is actually okay with prioritizing a scrap over a win. Because I keep hearing him talk in interviews. He's like, I want to have a war. I want to have a war. Now, that kind of worries me because he could sort of force Max into a predicament where Max can't sit behind that jab and be patient, but ultimately I think it's going to actually feed more into Holloway's game because Holloway, again, you're going from fighting these killers, Speedy Gonzalez's like Volk, Ilia Topuria, and Holloway looked great in that last fight with Ilia Topuria. He looked phenomenal against Ilia Topuria. He was tagging him up. He was landing lots of good kicks on the knee. He just looked so well-rounded with his striking approach. His boxing looked great as well. And I think that if we see a wild man Dustin Poirier, who is clearly a lot slower than he used to be, more worn down, I think it's going to feed into Holloway's game, and I think we could see Holloway clip him with some really good shots and maybe even hurt him with an uppercut, with good right hands, because we know that when you really rush at Max Holloway, it can get dangerous. Look at TKZ rushing at him. He gets flatlined, right? Look at Justin Gaethje slugging with him. He gets flatlined. So Holloway's the last guy you really want to just force into a gritty pocket scrap. And I think that Dustin Poirier in his prime might be the only guy outside of maybe Topuria that can do it, but he's not in his prime anymore, where I still think Holloway's a lot closer to it. And in the later rounds, let's say we get an early scrap, an early war, and it kind of slows down a little bit. I think Holloway's more equipped in the third, fourth, and fifth when it comes to both guys are a little tired. Who's going to win a tit-for-tat game where they don't have the same power and speed? I think Holloway, he's the better guy. I think he's the more technical guy right now. I mean, as good as Dustin Poirier's boxing was back in the day, I don't think he's ever been at that level of the version of Max that we've seen since the second fight with Volkanovski. Like, I think that version of Max to the version of Max we saw against Topuria, he's just a step ahead. And I just think that, this is a lightweight Dustin Poirier. This is a featherweight Max Holloway. And sometimes I say when you've been up a new weight class and you've been in there for a couple of fights, you no longer really have that lighter man skill. Well, thankfully, Max Holloway, after fighting a lightweight, went back down to featherweight to get some of that lighter man skill back for his move up to 55 against Poirier. So I think Holloway's going to win this. I think that at range, Holloway's going to have a huge advantage. I think in the pocket, Dustin's not going to be as speedy as he once was, and I think Holloway's going to pick his shots. He's going to be defensively sound, and I think he's going to have the ability to tag Dustin Poirier up with uppercuts. And also, again, stronger version of Holloway. I think some of those shots he's going to hit Dustin Poirier with, he's actually going to get some respect this time. Whereas back in the day, it was skinny, fat Holloway, landing clean on Poirier even in the first round, but it had no impact. Holloway's got impact on his shots. He's got good impact on his shots, especially at lightweight. He's got big impact on his shots. He must have rocked Justin Gaethje 5 times in that fight before the actual KO. Kicking game is on Holloway's side. Output, range, Holloway's side. Pocket boxing, it's going to be close. But again, Poirier's slightly declined speed. And Holloway, he's going to be a lot more explosive this time. I just don't see where Dustin Poirier is going to be better than him. I think he had a big advantage last time because Holloway was not fully prepared for that one. And again, that was Dustin at his absolute pinnacle. Holloway, is he at his pinnacle anymore? No, I don't think so, but he's not as declined as Dustin. He gets this one done. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'm going to pick Max by a 49-46 decision. Maybe a late round stoppage. Maybe. We will see. But I think Holloway's going to look real good. I think he's going to go in there confident. And again, I know he got TKO'd, but he looked very good against Topuria. As I said, we've seen so many evolutions in his game. I think he looked better in the Topuria fight than he did against Gaethje. The only difference was the opponent was 10 times better than Gaethje. Okay? Holloway gets this one done, 49-46 decision, and I think he's going to rock Dustin Poirier a couple times in this fight to get some respect early, and that'll make it so Dustin's a little bit more wary, and that'll allow Max to get into the fight. It'll allow him to manage the distance a little bit. And yeah, until next time.